Kathy Krajco was of the first survivors who talked about narcissistic abuse under her real name. She died unexpectedly in her home in 2006. She was 56 years old. I suspect the narcissistic hive mind was behind her death. In her book, What Makes Narcissists Tick, Kathy Krajco says, 2.3 Protecting ourselves. I suppose professionals fear that a well-informed public would rise up and call for a witch hunt to discover everyone suffering from NPD or APD and lock them up. In fact, there is already a move afoot in Great Britain for Dr. Robert Ayres' psychopathic checklist to be used to identify and lock up psychopaths. In the United States, some want it to be used as grounds to impose the death penalty on criminal offenders eligible for it. The movement afoot in Great Britain is based on the assumption that the government is responsible for taking care of us, cleansing our environment of dangerous or of anything dangerous, and thus making our world a utopia for us. The movement afoot in the United States stems from outrage at psychopaths being set free to do it again and again and again by professionals and parole boards who just won't face facts. But though the threat predators like narcissists and psychopaths pose is serious, though they do a tremendous amount of harm in the world that must be addressed, including, by the way, the death of Kathy Krajco herself, it seems to me that this threat is easy to deal with and that doing so requires no draconian measures of dubious morality and fairness that violate individual rights. The reason I say that is because, as in the wild, predators kept at a safe distance are no threat. In the vast majority of cases, the prey was simply left a wolf in sheep's clothing get too close. Even in those cases where a narcissist is abusing his or her own children, they get into a position to do that. He or she first had to fool the other parent into marriage. This doesn't have to happen, at least not nearly as frequently as it does. A wolf in sheep's clothing can be recognized. The problem is that many people don't spot the signs of bad faith and mental illness. Or if they do notice something that sets off their red alert, they blow it off. This indicates that we need two things: a well-informed public and a change of attitude. First, no more big secret. Everyone needs to know the truth, that there are predators among us. They seem just like the rest of us, so appearances and reputation mean nothing. It could be your grandmother, a bishop, the CEO of a major corporation, a senator, a psychiatrist, a social worker. They are everywhere, and we all encounter them. Second, we each must measure out the trust we place in others with that truth in mind. Why don't many do that? I think it's because of a seismic shift in attitude during the last few decades. As an individual, we have ceded the primary responsibility for our welfare to others. For instance, teachers complain that parents have shifted too much responsibility for raising their children to the schools. Doctors complain that patients seem unwilling to accept any responsibility for their own health, doing nothing to take care of it themselves and expecting the doctor to keep them healthy. Unfortunately, even though they complain, that's quite a head trip for teachers and doctors. They are quick to take charge of your health and of raising your children, as if these things are none of your business. You should leave it to them, the expert, because they know what's best for you. But it's your children and your health, so what's it to them if they screw up? Their main motivation come through their income and remaining politically correct in their establishment, according to the groupthink of their peers, no matter what the consequences to you. In public safety, this others take care of me attitude has gone so far that many people think an individual has no right to defend himself. That's for the police to do so. The individual is treated like a child whose judgment can be trusted, so he or she mustn't ever hit back. Even in rural areas where the nearest police officer is many miles away, they insist that people have no rights to own firearms. If the police can't or don't protect them, well, that's just stuff. They must just die because they can't be trusted with the right to use force, even in their own self-defense. Till not long ago, if you tried to patronize someone, he or she was liable to remind you that they were an adult with the reply, "I can take care of myself, thank you." But you almost never hear anyone say that anymore. I once heard former Congressman Lee Hamilton, a Democrat and co-chairman of the 9/11 Commission, say that during the 1960s, the constituents who contacted him for services were almost all essentially saying, "Get the government off my back." But by the time he left Congress in the 1990s, the attitude had completely reversed, so that his constituents were saying, "Make the government take care of me." Note that this is a Democrat, not a Republican, voicing concern over this change of attitude in the land of the self-reliant. One wonders what Democratic President John F. Kennedy would say about it, since he is famous for saying, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." So here we live in a society in which 15 to 20% of people meet the diagnostic criteria for at least one personality disorder, and 20 to 25% meet the diagnostic criteria for a mental disorder at some point in their lives. We are not babes in toyland. Therefore, some of the crazy chatter we hear is just that, crazy. And among the personality disordered are narcissists and psychopaths, predators. We feel sorry for people in the third world who live in wild areas with, say, man-eating tigers to worry about. But we can assume that since lions and tigers and bears, oh my, don't roam our streets, we live in a safe environment and needn't be on the lookout for predators. The good news is great news. Most predators are easily discouraged. If they see that the moment they take one step too close, you're wary of them, they head off in search of for easier prey. Predators are quite ready to do this because they are wary of you. Like sharks, on their first run, they usually aren't serious yet. They're just testing you. So if you show them that you aren't naive, they are gone. In bold, imposing close encounters, you can just whack them on the snout. Divers swim safely among packs of great white sharks using this simple tactic as necessary. What do I mean? When someone imposes to violate your privacy with a personal question, don't cave it an inch. Confront it. For example, you might say something like, boy, you ask a lot of questions, or I'm afraid that's none of your business, or I'm going to keep that to myself, or even the simple, why are you asking? When someone imposes to violate your privacy by presuming to be the job of your personal, private choices, thoughts, or feelings, they don't succumb to that flattering carrot or dodge that unflattering stick confronted. You can say something like, that's up to me, not you, or why do you think you are, or you're not my judge. Like I said, you can just whack them on the snout like this. By doing so, you are keeping their nose out of your business. In the blink of an eye, they are gone, in search of easier prey, just like that shark. Really, recently, an abalone diver off the coast of New Zealand fought off a great white shark that had him half swallowed head first. Why? Because predators cannot afford the injuries their prey may do to them. Those injuries might prevent them from successfully making future kills. It's the same with human predators. When they say that you're not naive, they fear that you might sound the alarm for them.
So they leave you alone, not finding anything that you could accuse them of. They are the ones who have crossed the line of your personal boundaries between parentheses, so they are the ones being rude, not you. Moreover, caving in to imposition, this is dangerous because predation is a sign of weakness. Now you're already on the menu because they aren't just testing you anymore. Now they're after you. 2.3.1 Meeting out trust. Not everyone deserves the same amount of trust. Those nearest you and in the same boat with you, between parentheses, have earned and deserve the most. Never assume that people not in the same boat with you really have your best interests at heart. They have nothing at stake in the matter, so they may have nasty ulterior motives behind what they say. More often, of course, they are just somewhat careless and are merely trying to sound or look good without really considering the consequences to you of their advice. In meeting out the trust you give to others, you have to go by their track record. If you know a person lied yesterday, or he or she is a liar today, they don't care if they are I don't care if they are canonized saint, they lack credibility. Yet most people judge by the appearances that status or reputation create instead of track record. The result is that a certain person or institution can lie and cheat and rape and loot till the end of time. Because no matter how many times he or it proves they can be trusted, the whole world acts as though the past is irrelevant and keeps on trusting them. When someone has lost your trust, they need to earn it back. That takes time. It takes time to establish a trustworthy track record to someone worthy of your trust again. But when someone has lost your trust through treachery, which is cruel, I think you should never forget that, for it is the sign of a predatory nature, not a mere stumble from the straight and narrow, such as anyone might have. Common sense dictates that we should be careful of strangers because they have no track record with us. Ironically, most people trust strangers more than people they know. This is what keeps street con artists in business, between parentheses. If you know someone for a long time, you are bound to learn things about them that you don't like. You will know that what kind of things they are likely to be dishonest about. You will know in what ways you can trust them and to what extent you can trust them. I am happy to trust them that much, whether or not I really like them. But strangers you know nothing about.
This doesn't mean you should be suspicious of strangers. In other words, I would not mistrust them without reason, but I think you should invest in only a baseline level of safe trust in them until you know they are worthy of more. When you see a sign of bad faith, mental illness, manipulation, or predation in someone's behavior, please don't blow it off. Make note of it. If you never see another, great. That was an anomaly or perhaps a misunderstanding. But if you do see it again or see another, take the warning signs seriously. The signs are self-evident to anyone who really pays attention to the people around him or her. I suspect that the only people who totally miss them are the self-absorbed, i.e. those who are somewhat narcissistic themselves between parentheses. The rest of what makes Narcissists Tick highlights some of these signs, but here are gathered a generalized list of behaviors that bear negatively on a person's trustworthiness. Blowing up today and acting like it happened tomorrow. Weird lies, betraying anyone or anything, a broken or change between parentheses promise. Reactions that are bizarre, perplexing, and make you have to pinch yourself. Attempting to come between you or anyone else. Attempting to come between you and your word. Attempting to come between you and your money. Attempting to go between you and yourself. Being glib. Asking personal questions. Prying. Not minding one's own business. Relating to you inappropriately. Getting too close for the nature of your relationship, or relating to you from above as your judge. Judging your personal private choices, such as what you think or wear. Judging your feelings as though you can change them. Sketchy talk that leaves but a mysterious impression without concrete meaning. Arguments that are mere lines and slogans. Speaking badly of others. Impugning the motives and intents of others. Overreacting to things. Minimizing and catastrophizing. A track record of dishonesty, asking you to secretly inform against your peers, unless of course they have broken the law and you have verified that you are giving this information to legitimate law enforcement authorities between parentheses. Narcissism in high places. This is 2.3.2. You know, in celestial places where the celebrated celebrities are, beware the impression that you know between commas these people. You don't. That isn't them on the TV screen or in the magazine photo. That's their image. Stars and politicians' images are the product of professional image makers between commas who present them to us as performers in stage settings. Don't trust an institution or organization to filter out the personality disordered on the road to the top. Indeed, narcissists have great climbing skills. Narcissists are expert at tearing down whoever is above them on the ladder of success. That's what narcissists do, non-stop all their lives, because that's what narcissism is. They get very good at it because it's an aspect of the disease, an aspect that is more a benefit than a curse in society. In fact, they get so good at climbing over those they throw down that they come out smelling like a rose, because nobody even knows who instigated the talk that destroyed that person. For this reason, many say that narcissism is an adaptation, not a mental illness, a character disorder, not a personality disorder, because it helps rather than hinders their functioning in society. What's more, narcissists have no compunctions about exploiting and tearing down their betters because they have no empathy, no conscience, another big advantage over normal people. Nor do they have any compunctions about getting tough with their subordinates and firing people. They love doing that because that's what narcissists do. Vent themselves on others by bullying whomever they can. It's an aspect of the disease, and it's an asset because it makes them look like good tough between commerce managers of personnel. Narcissists are shameless but subtle self-promoters, expert at carving out the perfect false between commas image for themselves. Yet another big advantage. In fact, being for looks only, they see no reason to work for credit or credentials, so they just fake it. Whenever possible, they may cheat their way through college or buy a degree from a diploma mill or fake their credentials altogether. On the job, they steal the credit that belongs to others. In fact, I suspect that behind every charlatan who commits surgery without a degree in medicine or a license to practice it, you'll find someone with NPD. Being experts in faking excellence is another social advantage. In fact, you can view NPD as a trade-off the narcissist makes. He or she adopts a way of life, a personality, between parentheses, made to order for achieving success in society. What they give up is happiness in close interpersonal relationships. In fact, they give up ever having real human relations with anyone else because they dare not let anyone access their soul. In effect, they have sold it. So they must be content with getting what they want from intimates by pushing them around. NPD doesn't prevent people from occupying positions of power, wealth, and prestige. Many people with NPD, as Kernberg's classification makes clear, are sufficiently talented to secure the credentials of success. In addition, narcissists' preoccupation with a well-packaged exterior means that they often develop an attractive and persuasive social manner. Many high-functioning narcissists are well liked by casual acquaintances and business associates who never get close enough to notice the emptiness or anger being underneath the polished surface. Encyclopedia of Mental Disorders. Now I can almost hear those wheels grinding. You're picturing the typical corporate executive officer ambitiously climbing the ladder of success. Think again. This arena is not the favorite haunt of narcissists, I think. We hear of many of boardrooms and in stock brokerages, but boardrooms and stock brokerages are not the same thing as corporate executive officers. I should think that a narcissist would not be at home in a smart and sophisticated big business with competent personal managers, one that measures job performance accurately by objective metrics. Most of the narcissists I have known were in the helping profession between commas, particularly education, little read, accountability, and abundant means to fake it. Among those who were teachers that I have known or heard about, I've noticed a peculiar similarity. They avoided accepting any position that would set them up as the responsible party and a target for criticism. For example, they would come up with excuses for why they could not fill a vacant head coaching position. They preferred to call the shots from behind the scenes as an humble, between commas, assistant coach who manipulated the head coach. Now it's too loud. I know of two in particular who were amazingly manipulative puppet masters. They managed to get themselves adored as the coaches emeritus at a school. The only one had dared to ever accept a head coaching position and quit after just a few years. Yet they had all the coaches coming to them for advice and for an evaluation of how well they had coached the last contest. One of these gurus even somehow got himself elected conference football coach of the year. An exception to this avoidance of the top position is in private schools, which are allowed to operate in secrecy and where the principal has so much power that, like a dictator, he or she can game the system to get away with anything, denial of civil rights, slander, threats, extortion, you name it, without fear of exposure and prosecution. This is why narcissistic bullies in the workplace are a particular problem in private non-profit institutions. It is also a serious problem in the public sector, not because civil rights are easily trampled there, but rather because of a do-gooder culture, of a moral elitist culture, which is also prevalent in private non-profit institutions. This culture creates an unwholesome environment because many are not there to do good. They're to be seen as doing good. They are self-righteous and love to show how good they are by pointing at someone else and telling you how bad they are. Such people might as well have remote control panels because a narcissistic boss can aim and shoot off their mouths at anyone once, just as you'd aim and fire a gun. This enables a narcissist to manipulate the whole group, to morally prosecute anyone marked as having the wrong politics or attitude. Examples would be in academia and social work. In fact, the helping professions, between commas, in general attract more than their share of narcissists, little real accountability and plenty of ways to fake it. All you have to do is fool people. You never have to prove that you're doing a good job. Unfortunately, narcissists in positions of high visibility or power, particularly in the so-called helping professions like medicine, education, and the ministry, often do great harms to others. In recent years, a number of books and articles have been published within the religious, medical, and business communities regarding the problems caused by professionals with NPD. One psychiatrist noted in a lecture on substance abuse amongst physicians that NPD is one of the three most common psychiatric diagnoses among physicians in court-mandated substance abuse programs. A psychologist who serves as a consultant in the evaluation of seminary students and ordained clergy has remarked that the proportion of narcissists in the clergy has risen dramatically since the 1960s. Researchers in the field of business organization and management styles have compiled data on the human and economic costs of executives with undiagnosed NPD, from the Encyclopedia of Mental Disorders. Another thing about the helping profession that attracts narcissists is the abundance of vulnerable prey they supply. think not only of vulnerable children in the case of teachers, but also of the vulnerable children and grieving or hurt adult in the case of priests and ministers. Think of the vulnerable patients supplied to psychiatrists and so forth. The same thing can happen in business, but it's usually a small business in which the owner doesn't realize how bad for business a narcissistic bully manager is and doesn't closely supervise managers to make sure they're tough but fair and treating the employees right. Politics is the ideal area for narcissists because it's all about image. The list of those who have conned whole nations, become dictators, is breathtaking. When will the human race ever learn? In a Western democracy nowadays, a narcissist would prefer the legislature to seeking the top position as a conservative head of state because of the target he or she would become for the liberal media. In a dictatorial regime, however, none of that matters. Narcissistic politicians tend to be political chameleons who espouse whichever ideology is advantageous to them at the moment, or they practice policies inconsistent with the ideology they profess. Their understanding of socialism, conservatism, or whatever is shallow and runs only skin deep because it is just part of their act.